There's something wrong, and it all started in China. But it's here now. No matter where you are at this very minute, you are knee-deep in it at this very moment. You might not realize it, or you might be choosing to ignore it, but I can promise you that this problem is very close to you. If you're using the internet without a VPN, then you're doing something wrong. Today's video is brought to you by my favorite VPN, Surfshark VPN. When you connect to a VPN, what it does is it creates a tunnel around your internet connection so that no one can see what you're doing. I'm talking about your credit card information, where you're going, what you're doing, all of that stuff is shielded, including even from your internet service provider. But using a VPN also has a lot of other awesome perks, because if you're planning on going on a trip this new year, you can actually save money by using Surfshark VPN. For example, you go and buy a plane ticket, you go and try to rent a car, you go and find a hotel. These companies will actually look at where you're from and they'll change the price accordingly. So you can hop around to different servers around the world and actually find better deals on all this stuff. It's awesome. Also, if you want access to different Netflix libraries or any of the other streaming services from different countries, you can use a VPN to do that too. Not to mention, if you're in a country that blocks certain things on the internet, then you can use Surfshark VPN to open those things up. For a limited time only, there's an exclusive Surfshark VPN winter deal. Go to surfshark.deals/Lawai86 and you're gonna get up to 6 additional months for free. That's surfshark.deals/Lawai86 and use the code Lawai86 to protect your online privacy today. Guys, I want to remind you that I'm right on the final stretch of my road to 1 million subscribers, so I ask that you please make sure that you're subscribed or help me get the word out. If you like my videos or you think someone else might like my videos, my 1 million subscriber celebration will be interesting, to say the least, so make sure you hit that button. Over my 10 years in China, I've made some lifelong friends. I've had my fair share of insane adventures as well as hardships. For God's sakes, I had the SWAT team interrogate me in the middle of nowhere with automatic weapons strapped to their chest. I barely escaped. Many of my adventures were me on a motorcycle riding across China, meeting people along the way, but one thing was for sure. The sheer amount of people in China consumed by their phones meant that it was a struggle to get genuine interactions with people. And I'm not overstating this. Even back in the day in 2008, people were down here looking at that box in their hand and shutting out the rest of the world. Years before the USA had an issue with people disconnecting from reality and people glued to their phones, China had this problem full blown. Again, I'm talking like 2008. People were roaming around, crane-necked, glued to their phones, blocking out the chaos of the world. And in a way, I kind of sympathize because China is a crazy place. Now, around 2012, I was actually riding around northern China on a dirt bike, and I was exploring the far-flung regions of the country. There was actually a weird situation at the time where there was some government protests happening and they actually shut down the entire city, and they basically said, if you want to get out right now and go do whatever you're going to do, you got to get out right now. So I took my dirt bike and I left the city, and I was exploring. I was seeing what was out there, and stupidly enough, because of this dumb government shutdown thing, because of this little protest that was happening, I stupidly ran out of gas. And a big problem that I noticed throughout my entire career in China, throughout my entire stint in China for 10 years, is people don't help each other. They don't help strangers, right? If you need help, you call someone you know, because China is the least charitable country in the world, and it's one of the least trusting of strangers. And this is called the bystander effect. In fact, you'll see it across the entire country. People are afraid of getting scammed by each other, and there's a general apathy and distrust of each other because of the government. They've taught the populace over years and years of poverty and horrible government overreach that you can't really trust each other and everyone's out to get each other. For example, I saw an old man who had been run over by a truck in China and his lifeless body lay on the road. He was dead. Not only were people filming his corpse, but people in the crowd were laughing as well. And I was aghast, right? these things that really creep up on you in China, you don't realize how bad it is until you take a step outside and look at it. Be like, would this be insane in my own country? Would people be standing around a dead body laughing at it and taking videos about it? Probably not, right? But these things start small. This disconnect, this whole apathy and this whole like, I don't care about anyone around me, this snowballs pretty quickly. And China is a really good example of how bad it can actually get. Anyway, going back to that story, I was stranded there on the side of the road without gas. And a guy pulled over on his motorcycle and he took me to a gas station to get some gas. We ended up hitting it off. We got some beers and barbecue when we got back into the city after this whole thing blew over, and we got the bikes back to my place. And anyway, we got to chatting. And it turns out this guy, this Chinese dude, didn't really believe in phones. It wasn't like a moral imperative, but he was my age and he had a phone, but he didn't go around and just use it mindlessly like everyone else. He wasn't some mindless drone, right? And something he said always stuck with me, even back then. I thought this was pretty insightful. He said, everyone in my country, China, thinks that they're connecting with each other on their phones, but they don't see the people right in front of them. If I was on my phone, I wouldn't have met you. And that's really true. I mean, if he was on his phone messing around and just, doing whatever, shutting out the rest of the world, he wouldn't have helped me out. Anyway, we ended up super close and pretty much spent every other day together when I lived up north. Over the years, I watched China devolve into this sad state. You go out to a restaurant and next to you, there's a couple. One dude playing some stupid game on his phone, collecting his piles of gems as rewards for slaying pigs. And the girl doctoring a photo of herself on Meitu to send to her friends. Slumped over, completely ignoring each other. They're on a date, for God's sakes. But they're definitely not dating each other. They're dating their phones. And they're dating other people that they're contacting through their phone. You go to the library in China, kids were sitting on their phones, completely oblivious to the people and books that surrounded them. I mean, this was happening a long time ago. People gained a sixth sense in China to avoid bumping into each other so they could look down at their phone while walking through treacherous traffic. Of course, this doesn't always work. Don't even get me started on people using their phones while driving or riding their motorcycles or their e-bikes. But most importantly, I watched people's relationships with each other fall apart. I could palpably sense people falling away from each other. China was the litmus test years ahead of the rest of us. I saw China go from a society where you could see people having real-life interactions with each other to completely cut off from the world around them. You could see it in numbers too. China's divorce rate skyrocketed. In fact, the Chinese government would, in the past, brag about how moral Chinese society was because of their low divorce rate, especially compared to the US. But now China's divorce rate dwarfs the USA. It's not just marriages, though. If you see how entrenched people have become in China's internet-only society, it's truly dystopian. This is a symptom of how perpetually online culture can go super dark and become mainstream and even accepted, even by the government. But in our society, outside of China, we get caught up in it too. And I get caught up in it too. I would hazard a guess that you might as well. We have arrived, ladies and gentlemen. Do an experiment for yourself. Go out and see how many people want to make eye contact with you in public. I don't care where you are, but I would hazard a guess that most people don't want to make small talk. They don't want that interaction. Not saying it doesn't exist, but I'd say most people. Walk down any street and you'll see how many people are walking around with the earbuds in and shutting out the world, myself included. I would also guess that you might be doing this as well. And why would you want to interact with people? Let's be honest. It's really stupid if you think about it. Why would you, given the choice, want to put up with the social stress of having to be presentable and polite and not awkward? And why would you want to put up with a challenge of having to make someone else interested in what you're saying? Or at least pretend to be interested in what they're saying? Why do that? And then also, don't forget the added challenge of making them believe you that you just cared about what they said. It's exhausting. You have this little box in your pocket that can feed you literally anything you've ever wanted to know flood your brain with dopamine by presenting you with little videos and pictures tailored to the very minute interests that you have. Likes, comments, all of this reward, the rewarding you with praise from other people that you don't even know online. Why the hell would you want to look someone in the eye and suffer that horrible awkwardness in real life? This used to be like a boomer complaint, right? All these dang kids on their phones. But no, this has actually become a boomer problem as well. We don't want to interact with each other as much as we used to because we tricked ourselves into thinking that that interaction is coming from places on our phone. Really, what we're doing is distracting ourselves and avoiding that awkward social interaction. And yeah, China was ahead of the game by leaps and bounds. But the problem is we're getting there as well. We're really close. I mean, I think we're a few years off. We're slowly getting to a point where it might be weird at all to talk to our own neighbors, even our family, our significant others, or even our kids. There was something that happened to me that really shook me to my core. This always kind of messes me up, chokes me up a little bit when I think about it, but there was a moment where I actually stepped out of my own selfish, ridiculous, living in the moment state of being, and again, I was really shaken to my core. I was woken up. A while back, my daughter came to me after she woke up, and she came to my room to ask me something, and I was laying around on my phone, doing whatever, doom scrolling some garbage news or something like that. And she was like, Daddy. And she was asking me, she needed to know something. She wanted to learn something. I was ignoring her. In fact, I was getting almost annoyed. I was saying leave me alone. Give me a minute. I'm busy right now. When in fact, I wasn't busy. What I was doing was not looking at my own child and rather looking at doom scrolling news, scrolling through absolute nonsense that didn't matter to me in that very moment, and making and teaching my child that it was normal to pay attention to a little box in my hand when I had all the free time in the world to be able to help her out and teach her something. That moment, I don't know, there was something that happened where I actually recognized what was happening. And that was the moment that really just snapped me out of it. That maybe made me look into this as something more than just maybe I'm spending too much time on my phone. That it has real world implications that might snowball into other people's experience of what they think is normal. Some other people's experiences, like your own kids or your family or your friends, damaging those relationships to a point where everyone just becomes apathetic to each other. I could see that happening in my own life. And I recognized that there was something that needed to be done, that it wasn't necessarily too late, but something could be done in that moment. And I have actually been working on this for a couple of years now. And I can tell you, as much of a struggle as this has been, literally everything in my life has improved in some way, shape, or form after I stopped being perpetually online. I'm not talking about completely cutting myself off, but being perpetually online and available. When I stopped that, things changed. And I know how ironic this is for me to tell you this over a YouTube video, and I can understand how weird it is from this coming from a China YouTuber, but it's something I saw happening. This is how passionate about this I've become because it's something I saw happen in China, a country I care about and love. I saw what horrific damages can come out of this perpetually online problem. I can see how bad it can become. Depression, anxiety, hopelessness. I've been there. I've been working on some ways that have worked for me to stop it in my own life. And I want you to know that this is not insurmountable. This is not impossible to deal with. This is not impossible to fix. This reliance and servitude to our devices, it's fixable. I've noticed this huge change in not only my life, but people around me as well. Waking up from this perpetual state of tech slavery, it's contagious. The first thing I did to really start to fix this was become conscious of it. Because you don't know how bad it is until you see it. It's kind of like if you get out of control overweight, you don't really know how bad it's become because it's come on so gradually that you don't really see it in the mirror anymore. You have to get on a scale and actually see your weight, right? You have to be shocked to the core. Unless you've had one of those crazy wake-up moments like me, you need to be aware of how bad it might have gotten for you. Maybe you haven't gotten bad at all, but you at least need to know what your baseline is. Now, only if you're comfortable, I want you to go on your phone and see what your screen time is. This is like some sort of feature that phones have, and it'll tell you how long you've been on your phone. If you're on a major phone brand like Apple or Android, it should tell you what your weekly average is. And again, only if you're comfortable. You don't have to write this down at all. I don't care. You can make this a private thing that you put in a little journal or on a piece of paper or just keep in your own mind. But in the comment section, if you are comfortable, if you want to share this with other people, tell everyone what your weekly screen time average was. And again, if you don't, at least check for yourself. You don't need to cut down. You don't need to even reduce your screen time. In fact, I'll show mine right here, right now, so we're all on the same page. And in the next video, what I'm going to do is tell you where to go from there. Because in fact, every single video, it doesn't even matter what I cover. At the end of the video, I would like to tell you what I've done and what I've learned, what has worked and what didn't work for me. And also uncover some things that you may or may not have seen that are just like right in front of you. And offer some maybe advice or suggestions. And you guys can, in the comment section below, offer advice and suggestions for other people as well. If this has helped you at all, or you just want to support me, head over to my Patreon and throw me a couple bucks. I'd really appreciate it. And I want to say, I thank you all. There's amazing things right around the corner for me and for you as well. Thanks.